Hi, welcome to the next in this series of Capita Office 365 videos about SharePoint, Power Apps and Flow and how they can help you in your work and your business processes. I'm Rob Elliott, Intranet and SharePoint Manager at Capita Real Estate and Infrastructure. And today's video is going to be looking at how we can set an expiry date or a renewal date for documents in a document library and send an email via Microsoft Flow to the owner of the document to prompt them to renew the document. Okay, so we've gone into our test site, which is called Power Apps Solutions. And instead of using the documents library that comes by default, we've set up a new documents library called Policies for this demo. So we will click on that. That loads up, and immediately you'll see that one of the new features which was rolled out by Microsoft during December 2018 was a much easier way of formatting columns. And we've set two new columns here, one for the next review date and one for the reviewer. The next review date is just a date time column. We'll have a quick look at that. Next review. You'll see it's set to date and time, and the format is date only, and the display format is standard. That's in DDMMYY format rather than the friendly format, which would be 1 hour ago or yesterday. And we've also set it to be a calculated value of today plus 180. That's an extra 180 days. So whenever a new document is added to the document library, it will automatically set the review date for 6 months ahead. The other column that we've created is for the reviewer. We'll have a look at that one. And we've created this as a person or group column so that you can actually select from any member of staff in Capita to be the reviewer, and it'll search for them and find them. We only want people, and we've picked name with picture and details, their name and their job title. I mentioned that Microsoft had released the new column formatting feature. You can get to this if you click on the down arrow on the column next to review, click on column settings and then on format, and you will see that edit template. Now the settings that I've put here, if the next review is before today, then it's been set to some sort of vague pinkish red colour. If it's today, then it's amber, and if the next review is after today, so it's sometime in the future, then it's green, and you just apply that. This formatting doesn't apply to every column type at the moment. By the end of 2019 it will do, but at the moment it's on just a few Boolean and choice and on these date columns. It's not on everything just yet. So we've set that, and it's much easier than using the JSON code that I've previously posted about. If it's just you that's reviewing these documents, then you could leave it like this and just look for the next review date that's in red, or you could create a view of the documents library that shows just those that are overdue or due today, and then look at that view whenever you needed to. But what we're going to do today is to look at what happens if somebody else needs to review the documents and you need to send them an email to prompt them to review the document. To demonstrate how to add and change a reviewer, we will upload a new document. We'll upload the SHE policy. Uploading one item, and after a few seconds it's added the document, and you'll see that it's automatically set the next review date to 6 months ahead, but there's nobody in the reviewer column, so we need to go in to do that. Click on the three dots and go to More and then Properties, and that's the one we want. There's a request in from the SharePoint tech community to Microsoft to have this moved into the main menu because it's going to be used by a lot of people a lot of times, and it's frustrating to have a couple of extra clicks to get to it. So we'll click on Properties, and in the window that appears, click on Edit All, and now you can enter a name or email address of the person. So we could start by entering, for example, Carol.Bartholomew, and it will find Carol, and then you just click on her, and her other details are known in the background as well. You don't need to enter the email address. The other way of doing it is just to start by entering her surname, and again it finds Carol there, and she's been added as the reviewer. We'll click Save, and then close the window in the top right, there's the X, click on that, and Carol has now been added as the reviewer for this document, and she will get an email in 6 months' time reminding her to review it. To change a reviewer to somebody else, it's the same process. You go into the document, More and Properties, Edit All, you delete the person that's there now, it's found me, save, and close it down, and it's changed the reviewer to me. As we're still in SharePoint, it's a good time to create a new view of the document library, which will show to each reviewer just the documents that they are due to review. So we will go to the gear up in the top right, click on List Settings, and if we scroll down to Views at the bottom, we'll create a new view. And we'll start from an existing view, All Documents. And we'll call this My Reviews. And if you scroll down, we'll sort by the next review date in ascending order. And then we'll go to the filter, and instead of showing all items in this view, we'll show items when the reviewer is equal to me in square brackets, and when next review is less than or equal to today in square brackets, and OK. And there's one document that's less than or equal to today, so that's showing that that document needs to be reviewed. And that's only picking up me as the reviewer, so anybody else who is looking at this wouldn't see that document there. we need to go into Microsoft Flow. So we will pick that. And in My Flows, click on New and Create from Blank. And again, Create from Blank. The first thing we're trying to do is to get Microsoft Flow to scroll through all of the items in the document library. And that's going to be done once a day. So it's recurring every day, so that's called a recurrence. So in the box there, type recurrence, and you'll see under the triggers we've got recurrence schedule. Click on that. The interval is set to 1 and the frequency every minute. Now we certainly don't want it to run every minute, but we do want it to run every day. You could set it to week, month or whatever, but we want every day in this case. So this flow will run once a day, but we can actually narrow it down even further and have it starting at a particular time. So let's say we'll run it at 9 o'clock every morning. So at these hours, 9, so we've selected 9, so it'll run at 9 o'clock every day. But at the moment it doesn't know what it's looking for. So we need to get the items from the list. So New, step there, and in the Choose Action box we can either type Get Items or we can go to SharePoint. And we want to get the items from the list. So Get Items. And it now asks for the site address and list name. So our demo site is called Power App Solutions. And if you remember, the document library that we created was called Policies, and that's what we want to select. So if we go into list name and click on that, it's not there. Now there's either a bug or a forthcoming feature with Microsoft Flow. At the moment it doesn't show document libraries, it only shows lists, but there is a way around it, and we want policies, so we'll enter custom value and we'll type in policies, and it will then find it quite happily. Having told Flow where we want to get the items from the site and the document library, we now need to add a new step so that it loops through the document library looking at each of the items it finds. And here in the Choose Action box we need to type Apply to Each. Then there's an Apply to Each control. And if you click in the box over on the right in the dynamic content box that appears, there's only one thing you can select, which is the value. So for each item in the policies document library, for each one that it finds, we want it to check whether the next review date is before or on the current date. So we will add a condition control, and here we will click in the choose a value box there, and you'll see the list of the columns in your document library come up. If they're not all there, not all displayed, there will be a show more up here on the right. We'll go down and we'll select next review. Just click into the middle box there, and you'll see that it doesn't give us a less than or equal to at the moment anyway. So just click is equal to for the moment. And then the value that we want is today's date, and the way that Flow does this is called UTC now with brackets. It's an expression. In fact, over on the right here you could type UTC now and click on OK, and it will add it into the box there, function. And if you now click back in the criteria, we now find that we have the is less than or equal to, which is the one that we want. So this is now saying that for each item in the policies document library, check whether the next review is less than or equal to today's date, and if it is, do something, and if it isn't, do something else. Well, if it isn't, and it's still in the future, then we don't want anything to happen, so we will leave that blank. But if it is less than or equal to today's date, then we will need to take an action. And the action that we want to take is to send the reviewer an email. So click on Add an Action, and in the box we want to send an email. Now you get several options for Office 365 Outlook here, which is the one we want. We could use the first one, send an email, but to make it look good we then need to add lots of HTML tags to it. Microsoft have now brought out a new version 2 which does it all for you. It shows that it's in preview, which means they're still adding features, but it works fine. So we will click that, and we get what looks very familiar for emails. Who's it going to? If you click in that box, and the options that you get here are created by, modified, or the reviewer email. So that's the one we want, and that's taken from the Documents Library reviewer column. When you selected the reviewer, it knew the other details about them. It gets it all from Delve. So we will pick reviewer email. What's the subject? You have a document to review. And in the body of the email we will type: the following document needs to be reviewed. Please upload a new version or edit the existing document. Of course you can put in whatever you like. And what do we want them to see? So if you go over to the dynamic content box on the right, I think we want the file name with the extension. This will tell them which document it is in the document library that we want them to review. And we then want to link back to the Power Apps list showing their view of the documents library. So we'll just take a copy of that URL for the My Reviews, and here we will add a link, and you've got a icon there. So the link title will be link to document library, and the link target, paste in the URL, and we'll open it in a new window. Click Add, and then put in a couple of line breaks after the link. I've noticed that if you don't do that, then sometimes the link gets stripped out of the final flow, so just make sure you've got a couple of line breaks after the link to document library. So that's all the steps that you need for your flow. If you go up to the top of the screen, you see there's a save button. If you were just to click that, it would save the flow with the name recurrence get items apply to each condition and so on, which wouldn't be really user friendly or help you to remember which flow does what in future. So before you click save, just click over here to where it says untitled or whatever it's got in that box, and if you just click on it you can type in your own title. So we'll call this document reviews, and now click save. saving, and that's been saved. If you go to your flows now, you will see that it's listed at the top. And because we did a recurrence flow, one of the things that you can do is to actually set the flow to run manually. If you hover over the arrow, it says run now. It's quite a useful feature. You don't have to necessarily wait for the next day's flow to run. You can actually run it at any time that you want. We're now going to run this flow. Go back to manage flows and run now and run flow. That's the sound of the email coming in. That's the email. You'll see that it comes from me, as I'm the owner of the flow. When you create your own flows, it will come from you. So this document needs to be reviewed, and there's the link to the document library. When the user clicks on that, it takes them just to their view of the document library, showing which documents or documents are scheduled for a review. For this demo, we'll just assume that the reviewer was changing the name of the document and renaming it to include the month in which it was reviewed, and save. And you'll see now that it's been modified a few seconds ago. But you'll also notice that it hasn't changed the next review date. So we need to do another quick flow so that whenever a document is modified, it updates the next review date for a further 6 months ahead. Back in Microsoft Flow, on the My Flows screen, we need to create a new flow. We'll create it from blank. Create from blank. And in the triggers, we'll use a SharePoint trigger for when an item is created or modified. There isn't a trigger just for when an item is modified. Now, I think that's because when an item is created in SharePoint, it also sets the modified date at the same time. So we'll choose when an item is created or modified. And you'll see that it's asking again for the site address. Pick on that and go down and select the test site, Power App Solutions. And then in the list name drop down, again, you'll see that it's not showing the document libraries. So we'll choose a custom value, click back in the box and type policies. We now want a new step, and this new step is to grab today's date and then add 180 days to it, because that's what we're going to use to update the item in SharePoint. So to do this, we need what's called a compose control. And there it is, compose data operations. And it's asking for an input. Now this input will be an expression. And the expression is add days UTC now 180. So we've got add days to today's date, and we'll add 180 days to it. Click OK, and that will put that expression, that formula, into the inputs. So now we've done that, we want to update the item in SharePoint. So we have a new step again. Again, it's a SharePoint trigger. And you can either scroll down and select update or type update. Oh, there we have it right at the bottom, update item in SharePoint. Again, you have to choose what it is you're going to update. So Power App Solutions, that's our test site. SharePoint list name, no document libraries, so click back in the box and type policies. And in the ID box here, so that it knows which one to select, it says unique identifier of the item to be updated. So just click in that box and then over on the right, select ID. That will pick up the SharePoint ID of that list, of that document library item. Then in the next review date, we want to get rid of that date. And we want the output from the compose. So click on output. That's all we need. But we need to give this a name. So again, up in the top left, as we did before, click where it says untitled or whatever is in the box, and we'll type document reviews update and click save. That will save the flow, and that's done. What we've done is to apply two flows to this documents library, one to send the email to the reviewer and the one to update the next review date. So you can have more than one flow working on a library or a list. What you can't have is to have more than one trigger in the same flow, which is why we couldn't combine those two actions into a single flow. So now we're going to update this document. We're going to rename it and call it January 2019 this time. And that's been done, and the flow has run, and it's changed the next review date to 28th of June 2019. That part might take a few seconds, sometimes 20 or 30 seconds, or need a refresh of the list, the library, before it will actually show up. Well, that's the end of the video. I hope you found it useful, but as always, if you've got any questions or comments or suggestions for improvements, do come back to me. My email address is there, and I'll be happy to advise and assist.